Hello everyone. In this presentation, we'll just go revise a few of the topics under Module 3. So, as we see, this topic covers as optical sources as a major topic. It consists of the sources like LED or lasers are majorly used optical sources where the light source is very important, where light sources are merged along with the information and it is carrying or it is pushing into optical fibers for long distance communication. Later part we are need to be detected at the receiver side. The light need to be detected, that's why we'll go with the photo detector. And the last part is optical receiver, where the how receiver going to work with respect to the partition. And these are the syllabus where we are going to see the major topic consisting before going into the optical sources, how it can be differentiated through the help of energy band and direct and indirect band gap we are going to see. So later part is LED and laser photo detector and its particular noise and detector responses, all those we'll discuss a little bit. So first I'll just give an introduction. There is a differentiate, can differentiate with respect to the optical sources. Light emitting diode or the high LEDs, the laser diodes like intensive the laser diodes or the insulated laser diodes with respect to LED have adequate output power and useful for fiber transmission system. So normally we considered either laser or LED because this is going to provide adequate output power and it will be easy and the useful condition for fiber transmission. That's why we are relying mainly the optical sources onto LED and laser. So these sources consist of PN junction with the direct band gap of 3 to 5 semiconductor materials. We'll discuss about the band gap, how direct band gap or indirect band gap need to be defined. We'll discuss that. Under forward bias, usually the injected minority charge carrier recombine and it will radiate the energy. That is what going to happen. And majorly we have two different of light configurations are going to be defined. So one is coherent and incoherent, where the coherent means light will be focused into on the one particular directions. So that's what we can majorly consider the current source of lights or the flow of energy. Or incoherent, they are doing in the opposite directions. That's how we can differentiate this incoherent and coherent detection or the light representation. So this is also a part to be defined, how I can differentiate this LED or ILD lasers with respect to a coherent and incoherent. Normally the focusing with respect to a laser is a coherent and LED is going to be an incoherent condition. Comes under incoherent condition. Choosing an optical source depends basically on the certain factors like optical waveguide, either the geometry of the device, how what we are going to mention, or attenuation as a factor we need to be understanding with respect to laser or LED, which I need to consider as a better. Group delay distortion, model characteristic of a fiber, these all are factors are going to be important while choosing optical source. Some of the requirement for an optical fiber as emitter, a size and a configuration compatible with the launching light into an optical fiber. So I just have to be focus the compatibility of laser along with the compatibility of optical source along with the fiber, where how it is going to be connected, either in terms of size or configuration, how light is going to be launched into the optical fiber. So it must be accurately track the electrical input signal to minimize the distortion and noise. That is one factor. How to distortion need to be minimized or noise need to be gets eliminated. So this I just have to track also. Should emit light at wavelengths which where the fiber has a low loss and a low dispersion. That is also one of the important parameter need to be considered. preferably capable of simple signal modulation over a wide bandwidth. Bandwidth also should be have good and sufficient optical power to overcome attenuation in the fiber. That is also very important. The optical power should sufficient so that attenuation need to be minimized. Should have narrow spectral bandwidth, very small spectral bandwidth, to minimize the dispersion factor, and there will be a stable output should be there for a largely unaffected changes of ambient conditions, like temperature should not affect the flow of the signal or optical signal across the fiber. So source comparatively should be cheap and highly reliable, and these are all the factors are required before any fiber going to be used as in terms of source the receiver side. So let us try to understand with respect to the structure of energy band structure before going to the direct band gap energy or indirect band gap energy. So I just need to understand the energy band diagrams. So normally, if any structure, if you take either the like any kind of metal or the insulators or conductors or whichever you take, there will be a different set of bands need to be defined. So based on that band, which we can understand the which can be follow which kind of material. So as per this particular diagram A, to define the pure crystal energy band diagram, where we have one band is conduction band, another band is having a valency band. So both these bands having containing some of the either electron holes are can be defined with respect to the material. So some of the band which can be conduction band, some of the region are can be valency band. So how they are separated? Through the help of energy band gap, that is what we can say. So the either electron or holes which can be existed either in terms of conduction band or valency band, whenever the transition of this across the field, only across this band can be possible by applying certain electrical field. So concentration of electron hole is known as intrinsic carrier concentration. Normally we are considering the concentration of either electron or holes in terms of the concentration as intrinsic carrier concentration, Ni. So Ni can be calculated using the equation k into exponential of minus Eg divided by 2 kBt, where Eg is the energy band gap energy also we can consider. Kb is the Boltzmann constant, T is the temperature where this is going to be occur. K is the constant which can be defined, continuous constants can be considered as in terms of 2 into 2 pi kb t divided by h square whole to the power 3 by 4 me into mh whole to the power 3 by 4. So where kb is the Boltzmann constant, T is the temperature, h is the Planck's constant, me is the mass of electron, mh is the mass of holes. This is going to be defined as in terms of to define k constant term. So by using all this we can find it majorly onto the intrinsic carrier concentration. Either if I want to say majorly onto electrons, then I just go with the electron term, and whole are then whole mass need to be known, and whole can be calculated what is the concentration of that particular carrier. So now coming to the energy, this particular diagram, if I represent it in terms of the concentration of electron or holes with respect to the energy states, or the based on the number of holes also we can define it, along with the energy diagram versus number of electron or holes, we can define it. The concentration of electron, you can find it in the electron energy here over here, or concentration of this is more over here. So whole concentration distribution which is defined, and electron hole concentration which is distributed here. So these are separated by certain energy gap, that is Ec minus Ev. So energy band gap energy, that is what we are considering. So this is a pure energy band diagram. However, we studied this on the physics consideration with respect to the band diagram. So with respect to this equation, whatever I just mentioned, so we are going to discuss one problem. The parameter is given for gallium and arsenide, that is one kind of material which is considered with at temperature 300 Kelvin T, and the rest mass for electron Me, total rest mass is 9.119 into 10 to the power minus 31 kg, but mass electron effective electron mass Me is 0.068 m. m. So that means m is means this, that is 6.19 into 10 to the power minus 32 kg, that is electron mass, and whole mass is 0.56 of m, that is 5.1 into 10 to the power minus 31 kg. So band gap energy with respect to GaAs is 1.42 electron volt. So now if I want to calculate the intrinsic carrier concentration Ni, I just need to use the previous whatever we mentioned the equation that I have to be used, where substituting K means with all that term which I need to calculate K. Later part I just have to calculate in terms of k into the into the that particular term, where I just all substitute and we can find the final answer. So this is how we can calculate the Curie concentration with respect to this GaAs at 300 Kelvin. So this is how we can calculate either the action of either electron or holes. Uh, so meanwhile, this is also another kind of distribution diagram, very similar to the earlier point, but we have certain points which can be defined adding impurities we know as doping. So external impurity, if it is added to the pure material, then it becomes an doping the method. And intrinsic and extrinsic materials, this is also we know how intrinsic materials can be mentioned, and in extrinsic material what is the term, and p-type and n-type materials how it can be formed. So current because of electrons in n-type material we can mention it, like in n-type material the majority charge carrier is electron, so current is flowing is because of majority charge carrier electron. So that is what we considered under n-type. So if I say n-type material, the majority charge carrier is electron, so electrons are more, so conduction band is differentiated at the top, so donor level is more for this conduction band rather than valency band. So valency band having a whole concentration very less, are comparing to the conduction band having more electron number of holes. So the energy band gap, now we can define it with the certain energy band gap, but electron concentration is more, hence the charge carrier can flow easily because electron is majority charge there. If I take p-type material, what is going to happen? Conduction band consisting a very less number of electron concentration, hole consisting majority charge carrier, out consisting more. So this cannot charge it, it can just accept the electron, it cannot travel or it can give an electron here. It just accepting number of any electrons can be accepted. So normally there will be an thermal process, generation process, that is what we can say as the tendency of moving either electron or depositing more electron, it can generate more thermal energy, or temperature is going to be increases whenever the process is going to be occur. Normally the traveling from one band to the another band, it need to emit certain amount of energy whenever there is a transition across the bands. So more energy which is traveling across, more energy is used, means there will be a more temperature deposition is usually going to be possible. So for extrinsic semiconductor, we can take from the mass action law, we can take the equation as P1 is equal to Ni square. That's Ni is the carrier concentration, however we mentioned earlier. So by using this we can able to find for the mass action law conditions. Semiconductor devices based on injection and extraction of a minority charge carrier going to be defined. So semiconductor device, either injection or extraction of minority charge carrier going to be occur. The semiconductor material is going to be made it. So next coming to the point is direct band gap energy. So direct band gap energy, there will be existence of photon energy. There will be a momentum is going to be very small with respect to the photon energy. So there is a going term is going to be an internal quantum efficiency. So we can define. So internal quantum efficiency is the defined based on the photon energy. There is a momentum is going to be very small in terms of h nu by c. So there will be a conduction band electrons defined and a valency band term is defined. The transition of conduction band electrons into the whole region or valency band. So there will be an electron transition in terms of photon energy based on this direct band energy gap between the conduction and valency band. So this transition of from top layer to the bottom layer directly. So with the photon energy which is going to be released, we'll call it as in terms of h nu. With the velocity speed, h nu by c is going to be considered, and the momentum how it is going to be defined, k. So this will always having some internal quantum efficiency going to be defined with respect to the band gap energy. So this band gap energy can be material. If suppose I have taken a different variety of semiconductor material like gallium arsenide, it is having direct band gap energy as in terms of 1.43. So this is what the energy band gap between the conduction and valency band with respect to the direct condition. So the recombination coefficient, that is or how possibility of recombination of electron hole pair, how it is going to be taken place in terms of the centimeter cube per second. So if I take the different variety of the semiconductor material, how the band gap energy is defined, you can see it from this particular table. So next particular term is indirect band gap energy. This is how it is going to be happen. There will be a transition cannot be possible directly from conduction band to valency band. There should be happen the conduction band is going to be minimum and valency band going to be a maximum energy level occur with the different values of momentum is required. So band to band recombination must involve some third particle to conserve the momentum, because of photon momentum is going to be very small. So some extra energy is required for this to conserve a momentum so that it can reach to the from conduction band to valency band. So there will be two photons are going to be come out from this particular case indirect band gap energy. This is what going to be mentioned how the indirect band gap energy can be defined. So as per exam point of view, direct and indirect band gap energy is going to be very important. You just need to be focused onto this particular. Next, the topic is going to be a LED. So this is, I think, already going to be once it is discussed by the madam. So I just further, I just briefly, I'll just go through with this LED topic. So this is particular block diagram, how we can define, how understandable diagram, and this diagram is very important as per the exam point of view. So the diagram A says it is the cross-sectional drawing for the gallium as aluminum arsenide double heterostructure junction of a light emitter, and second diagram B it is, and energy band diagram gives for the gallium aluminum arsenide same case, and diagram C part is giving the various refractive index with respect to the region of that particular double heterostructure junction. So this double heterostructure junction is going to be very important. So we have here to the either side we have a metal contact. With respect to that, next going to be a n type and n type. At the center we are going to have n type. So the light which is going to be emitted out through the help of light emitting diode, it is going to be happen at the recombination region. So normally the from the substrate metal contact to the substrate there will be exist, and from that light guiding carrier confinement region where the light is going to be guide, and it will be a carrier which is combining together and it is moving forward at recombination rate. Here the recombination process is going to be taken place whichever the higher either electron hole moves comes together at the recombination regions, and it will come out in the form of photon or in the form of light energy. So it is going to be emitted from the recombination region. So this is how we can differentiate all these levels under a double heterostructure junction, and this diagram is going to be very important as per the exam point of view. So this is just a notation how LED going to be look in the real time scenario. And if I coming into the LED, so we have two different majorly two different types. One is surface emitting LED and other one is edge emitting LED. So first if I want to discuss the surface emitting LED, and it looks as per this diagram. So surface emitting LED, and it can also be called as burst emitting diode or LED or front emitters LED. So if I coming into the LED, surface emitting LED, it can have some of the advantages with respect to the diagram of surface emitting. It will be high radiance surface emitting LED with having etching wall, circular etched well. You can observe it where we just focusing or we are fitting the fiber through that particular substrate what we are defined, something like our metallization, heat sinks, everything is going to be part, but the carrier confinement layer is this and recombination region is this, and it is going to be formed a double heterostructure junction. So this is over here I just connecting a fiber which is connecting to the recombination region, which should be a fiber axis should be an vertical perpendicular to the uh, confinement layer or recombination layers, so that it just need to be fitted properly over this to this region, so that the optical sources which is going to be attached into the fiber, so there should be a certain well, that's why we are created under surface emitting LED under this particular condition. So the surface emitting plane have highly active light emitting region oriented perpendicular to the axis of fiber, and this should have something like 50 micrometer diameter for the circular active area, up to 2.5 micrometer thickness, and emission pattern will be a 120-degree half power beam width, so it will take in a half power beam width. This is what going to be happen with respect to a surface emitting LED. And also this 120-degree half power beam width, as I just mentioned how it is going to be passed, this is defined in terms of a Lambert pattern, and this pattern source is equally bright and viewed from many directions, but the power diminishes as in terms of theta, where theta can be defined in terms of cos theta, and this value can be defined in terms of varying and total half power beam width with 120-degree. So that is all about with respect to a surface emitting LED, or can also be known as Burroughs or front emitter. So next another type I just mentioned as a edge emitting LED. So edge emitting LED, here you can see in the edge light is going to be emitted where we are having the optical output beam pattern can be defined. Out of this can have double heterostructure junction over here. Apart from that region, we can have something heat sink metallize unit or metallization metal unit, that is substrate and or light gating carrier confinement layer which is existed between the recombination region where the light is going to be emitted, as in terms of black spot here mentioned, which is an active area where light is going to be emitted out. And with respect to this edge emitting LED, we can have the fiber core diameter should be a 50 to 100 micrometer, and contact strip for the edge emitter is 50 to 70 micrometer wide, and the length of the active region usually range from 100 to 150 micrometer. These are the again here also half hour beam width can be mentioned in terms of 120-degree, but the half hour beam width which can be a, if I suppose I taken a plane perpendicular half power beam width, so with respect to this we can say it will should be a 25 to 35-degree angle should be a very small, I just need to be make, and this should be an 120-degree, so the angle over here can be should be 120-degree, but with respect to an vertical it should be 25 to 35-degree. So the edge or the edge should be a very edge itself a very small layer which can be mentioned with respect to edge emitting LED. And this diagram which is specifically to mention about some of the light source material and also a spectral pattern which is going to be mentioned. This is consisting both surface emitting LED and also for edge emitting LED, that particular how the wavelength, at what wavelength it should having a high relative output power with respect to the different type of LED. So both is consisting, but edge emitting is just focusing only onto that particular amount of wavelength region, but comparing to the surface emitting LED, this is what we can able to understand. But along with that we have also some of the topic like light source materials, so we should also take a focus on to the which type of material have to be used with respect to the light source, like gallium arsenide or aluminum or all the metal which we considered, gallium, aluminum arsenide, or any other particular material, indium, gallium arsenide, and phosphorus. So INGASP. So this is one type of material can be used to make the LED, or make the source of material, how it can be created. So with all the particular factor, along with this is also going to be an important factor to how spectral pattern can be defined for LED, two types of LED, surface and edge emitting LED. So next is going to be coming to the important point. Of course, quantum efficiency and LED power is also going to be a very important. You can expect some of the problem under that particular topic. Where we need to just focus on to that particular topic too. So next, coming to the major topic is laser. So laser, if I say, there is should be understanding of laser transition process is also required. So these are the process, transition process we already know. The absorption, taking some energy, moving from lower layer to the higher layer, that is what absorption of some energy and taking into the higher layer. Spontaneous emission is from higher layer to lower layer with emitting one amount of photon. And another one is stimulated emission. We have any ion at the highest level, and it is receiving some energy, and it hit it to the lower layer with the releasing the two photons. So this is stimulated emission. However, this is we already known it, how. So with by using this all this transition process, we are going to understand the type of laser. So one type of laser is how it can be developed, as in terms of Fabry-Perot resonator cavity from the laser diode. So this is normally we are going to be saying Perot resonator cavity should having something like two parallel light reflecting mirror surface define a Fabry-Perot resonator cavity. So we are having two set of mirror surfaces exist under this particular layer, wherever the lasing spot which is going to be mentioned. So of course it's have different layers as it is mentioned in this particular diagram. So you can see there will be a confinement layer, and at the center we have something like a cavity or lasing spot which can be existed at that particular point. So these having certain material stick representation, each having the size, the transverse size is zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.2 micrometer, or lateral size will be a 5 to 15 micrometer, and in longitudinal direction or length it should be a maximum, that is in terms of 250 to 500 micrometer. So this is all about the different dimensions with respect to the Fabry-Perot resonator cavity. And this particular another diagram over here, this will gives a Fairfield pattern representation of the diagram with respect to the how exactly the normalization, or what could be an maximum an angle whichever whenever laser light which is coming out from the lasing spot, what is the concentration of power should be more, where at that what at till what region it will be more with respect to the angle which is mentioned in this particular diagram. So the another type of laser is a DFB laser. DFB means it is a distributed feedback laser diode, which is considered. It is again having the active area and confinement layer substrate, of course, there. And but the major difference is the DFB to the Fabry-Perot cavity. Here we have distributed feedback having something corrugated feedback gratings. So this is gives the difference coming to the Fabry-Perot cavity. So this corrugated feedback grating, which is going to be something like varying with respect to the refractive index, periodic variation going to be occur with respect to refractive index whenever it is with respect to a multi-layer structure with respect to the length of the diode. So here majorly we are considering something like a Bragg reflector or Bragg grating reflector, which is considered during a lasing action. So how the lasing action which is going to be occurred in a Fabry-Perot cavity or in a DFB laser, it's quite different because we are using Bragg reflectors within the corrugated feedback grating at that particular region to make different structure with respect to the light emitting diode. So this is what the optical output versus the current, how the current which is going to be varied with respect to the output power. So as long as the power is current concerned at one particular point, the LED type emission will be more, and stimulation with respect to stimulation emission is going to be more comparing to the LED spontaneous emission. So current will be quite less comparing to the LED. And this is the optical confinement layer or laser diode structure with respect to the how career confinement layers can be created. With respect to this particular diagram, we can understand it, how the lasing spot or how the metallic strip is going to be pushed with respect to the active layer is going to be considered with respect to these particular conditions and diagrams. So the diagram A here sees the gain induced guide electrons injected via metallic strip contact alter the index refraction of the active layer. So the second diagram B, which is says the positive index, and the third diagram is going to say the negative index waveguide is a lower refractive index. This is a positive index and this is negative index. Light is moving away from the active area, negative light is moving within the active area as a positive area. This is gain induced index, something gain which is more, quite more with respect to the signal. So confinement layer, and this is the current confinement methods going to be used to achieve the with respect to the laser diode. So first diagram is preferential dopant diffusions, diagram B is proton implantations, and diagram C over here, which is okay, sorry, this is diagram first one A, which I just I think A is not there. So A is this particular diagram going to say about preferential dopant diffusion. The diagram B over here is proton implantations considered here. I think it is mentioned here, proton implantation. The third diagram, which is mentioned as in terms of inner strip confinement, third regrowth of back biased PN junction. As you can see, with respect to all this, the process is going to be a implantation one by one, step by step method. So dopant diffusion can be happen here. Here implantation can be happen with respect to the active layer. So next is the strip confinement layer is going to be created across the active layer, so that all the layer created, then PN junction how is going to be done with respect to the respective layer. So this is normally the confinement is going to be done in terms of current confinement method. So next point is to be mentioned is a photodetector. Photodetector is a very important device. Optoelectric devices is to convert the optical signal back into the electrical pulses. So converting light into the electrical form. So detector are commonly made up of a semiconductor material, that's already we know. Light strikes the light detector, a current is produced in the external circuit proportional to the intensity of the incident light. So we have some of the advantages. However, I earlier mentioned the inexpensive and repeatability, volume fabrications, and also we have something like suppose I used one type of photo diode method, Avalanche. It is having internal gain is high and more and also the low light level applications can be also used as a photo multiplier. So performance criteria to be detect the how optical detector can be chosen. One is sensitivity factor and other one is relativity based on the quantum efficiency and also fast response time, cost, and noise, robustness, reliability, stability of a performance. All these factors are going to be very important. So coming to the point, types of the photodetector. One photodetector is pin diode, where the structure was developed to increase the frequency response of the photodiode, and this device has a layer of n-doped intrinsic semiconductor material bonded with respect to the p-type material. So p and is separated by the region of I, where we are going to be say in the intermediate region to define or separate it, p and n layer. That's why this layer is going to be this I can also be say as intrinsic, something intrinsic semiconductor material is doped between p and n, hence it is called as pin device. So this is particular diagram which I can represent it for the pin diode. Mm. This is normal operation is the reverse bias voltage is applied across the device, so no free electrons or holes are going to be exist under intrinsic region. So incident photon having energy is greater than or equal to band gap energy, whatever the photon of the semiconductor material gives the energy and excite the electron from the valency to conduction band. So high electric field present in the depletion region, usually photo-generated carriers, is to be separated and collected across the reverse bias junction, and this gives rise the current flow, and we'll call it as a photocurrent within the circuit. So PN junction has a space charge region, which is two material types are used. This region is depleted the most of the carrier. The two regions are depleted with respect to the carrier. Any types of carrier is depleted. So photon generates an electron hole pair in this region that moves rapidly drift velocity by the electric field. So there will be a drift, recombination will be takes place, and drift will be from one layer to the other layer. So electron hole pair generated outside the depletion region, they move by diffusion at the diffusion in the sense in the moving in the reverse direction at a much slower rate. So diffusion is going to be a slower rate, but drift will be a more, so transition will be more under pin diode. So these are the photon flux penetrate into the semiconductor. It will be absorbed through material. Suppose pin is the optical power level falling at the detector at x equal to 0, then P of x is the power level for a distance of x into the material. So the incremental change, very small changes, that's dpx of the optical power level of a photon flux through the incremental distance of dx, then semiconductor can be mentioned as dpx by dx is nothing but it is minus alpha s of lambda into p of x, where alpha s of lambda is the photon absorption coefficient at a wavelength of lambda. We're integrating this, will get as the different power level at x. We can take it as p of x into is equal to p in of exponential of minus alpha s of x. This charge carrier moves at distance known as the diffusion length. Very important definition can be used as diffusion length. The time taken for electron hole recombination is carrier lifetime. We can also be calculated the wavelength in terms of this equation with 1.4 divided by Eg in terms of electron volt. Sorry, in terms of electron volts. So this is the first type I just mentioned about pin diode, and next type we have avalanche photodiode. Another variation with respect to the photodiode is avalanche photodiode. The avalanche photodiode offers the possibility of internal gain will be more, and it sometimes is also referred as solid state multiplier. The avalanche photodiode has a diffused PN junction with the surface contouring to permit high reverse bias voltage without surface breakdown. So the large internal electric field leads to multiplication of the number of charge carriers through ionizing the collision. So the directivity is also increased provided that the limiting noise is not from the background radiation. Normally under avalanche photodiode, the diffusion PN junction will occur, and then there will be reverse bias is also going to be happen, but the electric field leads to a multiplication. One is hitting with another and creating more number of electron or charge carriers. So this is ionizing the collision, and this will lead to the more flow of electron or current. This will lead to the photo current, which is going to be further movement. So avalanche breakdown can be happen, and this particular diagram can be used to be mentioned for avalanche photodiode. So it is having four layers like n plus b and pi region and also p plus. These are the diffusion regions as it is mentioned in the particular diagram, and the avalanche region having more electric field strength at n plus and p region. So that is going to be very important for avalanche photodiode. And this divides works as follows: like carrying a photon through the thin region of n plus and p region, the carrier are absorbed then into the pi region. The absorption lead to the generation of the electron hole pair in the pi region, and the electric field in the pi region is high enough to separate the charge carriers, and the electric field across the pi region is not high enough for the current charge carriers to gain enough energy for multiplication to take place. So here the multiplication factor which is going to be takes multiple or ionizing factor is going to be done. So electric field, however, in the n plus p region over here, electric field is significantly higher, so the charge carriers are strongly exerted and pick up energy. It is going to be moved. So with this coming to the point of some of the definition point, we have something like a responsivity, a ratio of the current output to the light output. high responsivity equals high receiver sensitivity. Quantum efficiency, nothing but a ratio of the primary electron hole pairs created by the incident photon to the photon incident on the detector material. Capacitance, how we can define it between the active area and reverse voltage. And response time is also going to be important definition. Time needed to the photodiode to respond the optical input and produce the external current. And this is one of the problem from a double heterostructure junction of gallium aluminum arsenide phosphorus LED. If emitting wavelength is 1310, and also the radiative and non-radiative recombination rates tau R and tau NR can be mentioned, and the drive current. So I just have to estimate the bulk recombination lifetime and also an internal power level can be calculated. So bulk recombination time you can calculate using the equation tau is equal to tau R into tau NR divided by tau R plus tau NR. So here we have answer is 23.1 nanosecond for the first case, and second case is the internal power level can be calculated. P internal is equal to N internal into HCIQ by lambda. So that equation can be used. N internal can be calculated as tau by tau R. HCIQ by lambda can taken from these, and the answer for this is 29.2 microwatt. And this is repeatedly asked in the examination. That's why I just kept the problem. So you can take that particular equation to calculate the recombination lifetime of LEDs observed. Thank you for listening.